Chapter 1. The Curse of the Tomb. Cairo, 1927. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and dust, a curious marriage of the exotic and the ancient that clung to the bustling streets. In the grand dining hall of the Shepherd's Hotel, chandeliers cast a golden glow over tables draped in crisp linen, where the elite of Egypt's archaeological circles mingled with European aristocrats. Hercule Poirot, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit despite the evening's heat, adjusted his moustache and surveyed the room with his sharp, owl-like eyes. "Mon ami," he murmured to Captain Arthur Hastings, his loyal companion, "observe the human spectacle. Such elegance, yet beneath it, the undercurrent of ambition and fear. It is, how you say, most intriguing." Hastings, ever the earnest Englishman, frowned. "Fear, Poirot? It's a celebration. Sir Reginald Hartley's team has just uncovered the tomb of Pharaoh Nebuchadnezzar. The papers are calling it the find of the century." "Précisément," Poirot replied, sipping his tisane. "And where there is treasure, there is always the shadow of danger. This talk of a curse. Pah! Superstition, perhaps, but it stirs the heart, does it not?" The occasion was indeed momentous. Sir Reginald Hartley, a robust, red-faced archaeologist with a penchant for brandy, stood at the head of the room, raising a glass to his team's triumph. Beside him was his financier, Lady Evelyn Warrington, a striking woman in her 40s, whose emerald gown matched the glint in her calculating eyes. Her husband, Lord Warrington, a dour man with a monocle, seemed more interested in his cigar than the festivities. "Friends," Sir Reginald boomed, "tonight we toast to Nebuchadnezzar, whose tomb has yielded wonders beyond imagination. Tomorrow we unveil the golden ankh, the key to his eternal legacy. But let us not forget the whispers of the past. Those who disturb the Pharaoh's rest invite his vengeance." A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the room, though Poirot noted several uneasy glances. At a nearby table sat Dr. Amira Khalil, a young Egyptian scholar with a keen intellect and a guarded demeanor, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. Beside her was Marcus Vane, a brash American journalist whose notepad never left his side, his eyes darting as if chasing a headline. Rounding out the group was Professor Heinrich Müller, a German Egyptologist with a perpetually furrowed brow, muttering about ancient safeguards to anyone who would listen. Hastings leaned closer to Poirot. "That curse nonsense is just local folklore, surely. Dr. Khalil mentioned it's been exaggerated to keep tomb robbers at bay." Poirot's lips curled slightly. "Folklore, Hastings, is often the cloak for truth. Observe Mademoiselle Khalil. She smiles, but her eyes, they do not. And Monsieur Van, he writes too quickly, as if he fears missing a secret. There is something here, mon ami, that does not align." As the evening progressed, Sir Reginald invited the guests to view a sketch of the tomb's layout, projected via a flickering lantern slide. The image revealed a labyrinth of chambers, with the golden ankh reportedly found in the innermost sanctum, inscribed with hieroglyphs warning of death to those who defile the sacred. Lady Evelyn, her voice smooth as silk, addressed the room. "Let us not be swayed by old tales. The ankh is a masterpiece, a symbol of life, not death. Tomorrow it will be displayed for all to see under the strictest security." Poirot's gaze lingered on her. "Madame," he said, approaching her later, "this ankh, it is valuable, no? But what of its history? Does it not trouble you, these warnings?" Lady Evelyn's smile was tight. "Monsieur Poirot, I finance progress, not superstition. The ankh will bring fame to this expedition, and I intend to see it through." As the night drew to a close, Poirot and Hastings stepped onto the hotel's balcony, the Nile shimmering under the moon. "Hastings," Poirot said softly, "this curse, it is not the work of a pharaoh spirit. No, it is the work of a human hand, one that seeks to hide something. And Hercule Poirot, he will uncover it." Unbeknownst to them, in the shadows of the excavation site miles away, a figure moved silently, a glint of steel in their hand. The first thread of the pharaoh's vengeance had already begun to unravel. "Hey, detective, quick question. Where in the world are you solving mysteries from? Drop your city in the comments. And if you want more twisted tales, hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's case, it gets even creepier. Stay sharp. Chapter 2. The Golden Ankh. The sun blazed over the sands of Saqqara, where the excavation site of Pharaoh Nebka-Re's tomb lay nestled among crumbling ruins. A marquee had been erected for the unveiling of the Golden Ankh, its white canvas flapping gently in the desert breeze. Hercule Poirot, shielding his eyes with a pristine handkerchief, stood among a small crowd of dignitaries, his polished shoes an affront to the gritty terrain. "Mon cher Hastings," Poirot remarked, "this desert, it is magnificent, yet it conceals so much. Like the human heart, it holds secrets beneath its surface." Captain Hastings, fanning himself with his hat, nodded absently. "Rather hot for secrets, don't you think? I say, look at that crowd. Everyone's here for the Ankh. Hope it's worth the fuss." The gathering was a curious mix. Sir Reginald Hartley, sweating profusely in his tweed suit, barked orders at workers arranging a velvet-draped pedestal. Lady Evelyn Warrington, cool and composed, stood beside her husband, Lord Warrington, whose monocle glinted as he scanned the horizon with disinterest. Dr. Amira Khalil, her dark eyes intense, clutched a notebook filled with hieroglyphic sketches. Marcus Vane, the American journalist, darted about, scribbling notes and pestering anyone who paused too long. Professor Heinrich Müller hovered near the marquee's edge, muttering in German about reckless hubris. As the ceremony began, Sir Reginald stepped forward, his voice carrying over the murmurs. "Ladies and gentlemen, behold the golden Ankh of Nebka-Re, a relic of divine power, untouched for 3 millennia." A worker unveiled the artifact, and a collective gasp rose. The Ankh, no larger than a man's hand, gleamed with an almost unnatural luster, its surface etched with intricate hieroglyphs. Poirot's eyes narrowed as he studied it, noting a faint discoloration along one edge, a detail unnoticed by the enthralled crowd. Dr. Khalil approached the pedestal, her voice steady but laced with unease. "The inscriptions warn of a guardian spirit bound to the Ankh. He who claims the sacred key without reverence shall find only death. We must tread carefully." Marcus Vane snorted, his pen flying. "Sounds like a great headline. Curse of the Ankh claims first victim. Sounds like a great headline. Curse of the Ankh claims first victim. Got any volunteers, Doctor?" Dr. Khalil's lips tightened. "Mock, if you wish, Mr. Vane, but history does not lie. The tomb seals were broken with unusual force. That is no coincidence." Poirot, ever observant, sidled up to Lady Evelyn. "Madame, this Ankh, it is exquisite, no? But tell me, who has handled it since its discovery? Such a treasure, it attracts many hands." Lady Evelyn's smile was practiced. "Only Sir Reginald's trusted team, Monsieur Poirot. It's been under lock and key. Why do you ask?" Poirot twirled his moustache. "Curiosity, madame. The little grey cells, they demand to know all." As the crowd dispersed for refreshments, Poirot lingered near the Ankh, now guarded by 2 local men hired by Sir Reginald. He noted their nervous glances, and the way one clutched a small amulet at his belt. Hastings joined him, wiping his brow. "Anything amiss, Poirot? You've got that look again." "Oui, Hastings. The Ankh. It is not merely a relic. It is a magnet for desire, greed, fame, power. And where there is desire, there is motive. I sense we are on the precipice of something most unfortunate." That evening, as the group boarded a luxurious Nile riverboat for a celebratory cruise, Poirot overheard a heated exchange behind a tent. Sir Reginald's voice was low but sharp. "You were told to keep quiet, Muller. No more talk of curses, or you'll be off this expedition." Professor Muller's reply was icy. "You cannot silence the truth, Hartley. The Ankh is no mere trinket, it is a warning." As the riverboat's engines hummed to life, Poirot stood at the railing, the Nile's dark waters reflecting the stars. "Hastings," he said softly, "the Ankh is the key, but not to eternal life. It is the key to a puzzle, and I, Hercule Poirot, will unlock it." Unseen in the shadows of the deck, a figure slipped a small vial into their pocket, their eyes fixed on the distant glow of the Ankh, now locked in a glass case below. Chapter 3. Death in the Desert. The dawn broke over Saqqara with a fierce, unrelenting heat, the sun casting long shadows across the excavation site. The Nile riverboat, moored nearby, swayed gently as Hercule Poirot disembarked, his polished shoes sinking slightly into the sand. Captain Hastings, ever at his side, mopped his brow with a handkerchief, muttering about the infernal climate. "Mon ami," Poirot said, adjusting his hat, "the desert, it is not merely hot. It is a stage where the drama of human passion plays out, and this morning, I fear, the curtain has risen on tragedy." Their arrival was met with chaos. A crowd of workers and expedition members clustered near the tomb's entrance, their voices a cacophony of fear and confusion. Sir Reginald Hartley, his face ashen, pushed through the throng, shouting, "Stand back! Give us space!" Poirot's keen eyes scanned the scene. "What has occurred, Sir Reginald? Your demeanour, it suggests catastrophe." "It's Muller," Sir Reginald said, his voice hoarse. "Professor Muller. He's dead." Hastings gasped. "Dead? Good Lord, how?" Sir Reginald led them to a shaded tent where Professor Heinrich Müller lay sprawled on a cot, his face contorted in a rictus of pain. An overturned cup lay beside him, its contents staining the sand a sickly brown. The air carried a faint, bitter, almond-like scent, which Poirot noted with a frown. "Poison," Poirot murmured, kneeling beside the body. "Most likely cyanide, if my nose does not deceive me. And yet, the professor, he was a cautious man, no? Who brought him this drink?" Dr. Amira Khalil, standing nearby, clutched her notebook tightly. "He was fine last night," she said, her voice trembling. "We spoke after the unveiling. He was worried about the Ankh, said it should be returned to the tomb." Lady Evelyn Warrington, her composure fraying, interjected, "Nonsense! This is no curse, Monsieur Poirot. Muller was old, perhaps ill. A heart attack, surely." Poirot's gaze was piercing. "Madame, a heart attack does not smell of almonds. No, this is murder, and it is deliberate." Marcus Vane, the journalist, hovered at the tent's edge, scribbling furiously. "This is gold. Kurtz claims first victim." "I'll need a quote. Poirot, do you think the Pharaoh's vengeance is real?" Poirot waved him off. "Monsieur Vane, your headlines, they obscure the truth. The vengeance here is not of a pharaoh, but of a human hand. Tell me, who was with the professor last?" Lord Warrington, silent until now, cleared his throat. "I saw him arguing with one of the workers last night, a local fellow, Ahmed. Something about the Ankh's handling. Muller was furious." Poirot turned to the crowd, where Ahmed, A wiry young man with nervous eyes stood clutching his amulet. "Monsieur Ahmed," Poirot said gently, "you will speak with me, oui? What did the professor say to you?" Ahmed's voice was barely a whisper. "He said I touched the ankh wrong, that I disrespected it. I told him I followed orders, but he wouldn't listen. I left him alone after that." Poirot nodded, his mind racing. He examined the tent, noting a small tear in the canvas near the cot, just large enough for a hand to slip through. "Interesting," he murmured. "The poison, it was administered with precision. But why now? And why Mueller?" As the body was covered and removed, Sir Reginald pulled Poirot aside. "Monsieur Poirot, you must help us. This could ruin the expedition. The workers are whispering about the curse. They're refusing to enter the tomb." "Fear not, Sir Reginald," Poirot replied. "Hercule Poirot does not believe in curses, but in motives, and motives, they leave traces. I shall find them." As the group returned to the riverboat, Poirot lingered, his eyes on the tomb's dark entrance. "Hastings," he said softly, "the ankh is the key, but not to eternal life. It is the key to greed, to betrayal, and now to murder." In the distance, a worker's shovel struck something metallic in the sand, the sound echoing like a warning. The Pharaoh's vengeance, it seemed, was far from finished. Chapter 4. Shadows of Suspicion. The Nile riverboat, the Lotus, glided smoothly through the twilight, its lanterns casting a warm glow over the deck. Inside the opulent saloon, Hercule Poirot sat at a mahogany table, his notebook open, his pencil poised like a conductor's baton. The air was heavy with tension, the recent death of Professor Miller casting a pall over the expedition's guests. Captain Hastings, seated beside him, fidgeted with his cufflinks, his face a picture of unease. "Poirot," Hastings whispered, "this lot's as jumpy as a pack of cats in a storm. Do you really think one of them poisoned Muller?" "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his eyes gleaming. "The little grey cells, they tell me that murder is never random. Each person here has a secret, a desire, and desires, they lead to actions most foul." Poirot had requested private interviews with the key figures, and the first to enter was Sir Reginald Hartley. The archaeologist's ruddy face was drawn, his hands trembling slightly as he clutched a glass of brandy. "Monsieur Poirot," Sir Reginald began, "this is a disaster. Mueller was difficult, but he was vital to the expedition. Who would do this?" Poirot's gaze was steady. "Sir Reginald, you argued with the professor last night, did you not? About the ankh, perhaps? Tell me, what was the nature of your disagreement?" Sir Reginald flushed. He was obsessed with that curse nonsense. Kept saying we should halt the dig, return the ankh to the tomb. Absolute rot. I've staked my reputation on this find. "And your fortune, perhaps?" Poirot pressed. "The expedition. It is costly, no? Who funds it, besides Madame Warrington?" Sir Reginald hesitated, then muttered, "A few private investors. But that's irrelevant. Mueller's death isn't my doing." Next came Lady Evelyn Warrington, her emerald earrings catching the lamplight. She sat with the poise of a queen, but Poirot noted the faint tremor in her fingers. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, "I trust you'll put these superstitious rumors to rest. This talk of curses is bad for business." "Business, madame?" Poirot tilted his head. "The ankh. It is more than a relic to you, is it not? A means to fame, perhaps wealth. Tell me, did you know Professor Muller well?" Lady Evelyn's smile was brittle. He was a colleague, nothing more. Brilliant but tiresome with his warnings. I assure you, my only interest is the expedition's success. Lord Warrington followed, his monocle glinting as he slumped into the chair. Waste of time, this, he grumbled. Mellor probably drank something foul by mistake. The man was always poking about where he shouldn't. Poirot raised an eyebrow. And you, monsieur, where were you last night, when the professor met his end? Lord Warrington scowled. In my cabin smoking. Ask the steward if you must. I've no patience for this detective nonsense. Dr. Amira Khalil entered next, her dark eyes wary. She sat stiffly, her notebook clutched like a shield. Monsieur Poirot, she said, I warned them about the Ankh. Its inscriptions are clear. Those who disturb it invite ruin. Muller believed me, but no one else did. Yet you continue with the expedition, Poirot noted. Why, mademoiselle, if you fear the curse? Amira's voice softened. Because I love my country's history. I want to protect it, not see it plundered. Muller understood that. Finally, Marcus Vane swaggered in, his grin undimmed by the tragedy. Poirot, old sport, you've got a real scoop here. Poison, curses, a dead professor. My readers'll eat it up. Poirot's smile was thin. Monsieur Vane, you are most enthusiastic. Tell me, what did you see last night, when you were perhaps chasing your next headline? Vane shrugged. I was scribbling notes, watching the crowd. Saw Mellor arguing with that worker Ahmed, and later with Hartley. Man was a powder keg, I tell you. As the interviews concluded, Poirot leaned back, his fingers steepled. Hastings, he said, each of them tells a truth, but also a lie. The Ankh is the center of this web, and its threads lead to greed, fear, and ambition. We must watch closely, for the killer is among us. Outside, the Nile's waters lapped against the boat, and a faint cry echoed from the shore. A worker, perhaps, or something more sinister. Poirot's eyes narrowed. The shadows of suspicion were growing longer, and the next act of the Pharaoh's vengeance was surely near. Chapter 5. The Nile's Whisper. The Lotus drifted along the Nile under a star-strewn sky, its engines a low hum beneath the murmurs of the passengers. The saloon, once lively with chatter, now buzzed with unease, the shadow of Professor Mellor's murder lingering like a miasma. Hercule Poirot stood at the ship's railing, his eyes tracing the river's dark ripples, his mind as restless as the water. Mon ami, he said to Captain Hastings, who stood beside him, the Nile, it whispers secrets. Tonight, I fear, it will speak of death once more. Hastings shivered, despite the warm night. You're giving me the creeps, Poirot. Surely one murder is enough. The crew's on edge, and the workers are muttering about abandoning ship. Précisément, Poirot replied, his moustache twitching. Fear is a tool, Hastings. Someone uses it to obscure the truth. But Hercule Poirot, he sees through the fog. The evening's dinner had been a strained affair, with Sir Reginald Hartley attempting to rally spirits with forced joviality. Lady Evelyn Warrington maintained her icy poise, though her glances at the glass case housing the golden ankh were frequent. Lord Warrington, as usual, seemed detached, his monocle fogging with the steam of his soup. Dr. Amira Khalil ate little, her eyes darting to the crew, while Marcus Vane peppered everyone with questions, his notebook ever present. As dessert was served, a piercing scream shattered the silence. The passengers leapt to their feet, rushing to the deck. There, slumped against a coil of rope, lay Ahmed, the young worker who had argued with Mellor. His face was pale, his lips tinged blue, and a small dagger protruded from his chest, its handle carved with an ankh symbol. "Good heavens!" Hastings exclaimed. "Another one! Poirot, this is madness!" Poirot knelt beside the body, his gloved fingers examining the dagger without touching it. This blade, it is no ordinary weapon. The Ankh design, it is deliberate, meant to evoke the curse. But observe, Hastings, the wound is precise. This is not the work of a vengeful spirit, but of a calculated mind. Sir Reginald, his face redder than ever, pushed through the crowd. This is outrageous. First Muller, now Ahmed. Poirot, you must do something. Poirot stood, his expression grave. Sir Reginald, I am doing something. I'm observing. Tell me, who was on deck before the scream? Dr. Khalil, her voice shaking, spoke up. I was here, taking air. Ahmed was alone, checking the ropes. I saw no one else. Marcus Vane, scribbling furiously, chimed in. I was in the saloon, but I heard Ahmed arguing earlier. Something about the Ankh again. Said he'd seen someone tampering with its case. Lady Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Tampering? Preposterous. The case is locked, and only Sir Reginald and I have keys. Poirot's gaze flickered to her. And yet, madame, locks can be picked, keys can be borrowed, or perhaps the Ankh itself is not the target but a distraction. Lord Warrington snorted. This is getting out of hand. First poison, now daggers. I say we turn back to Cairo and let the authorities handle it. Poirot shook his head. No, monsieur. The killer is among us, and they will not escape. I require the passenger list and the crew's movements. Hastings, you will assist. As the body was covered and the passengers dispersed, Poirot lingered, examining the deck. Near the railing, he found a small scrap of fabric, torn and stained with sand. Curious, he murmured, pocketing it. This fabric, it does not belong to Ahmed's clothing. The Nile whispers, Hastings, and it tells me of betrayal. Below deck, the golden Ankh gleamed in its case, its hieroglyphs seeming to pulse in the dim light. As Poirot returned to his cabin, a faint creak echoed from the corridor, a footstep perhaps, or the riverboat settling. But to Poirot's ears, it was the sound of a killer moving closer to their next act. Chapter 6. Poirot's Little Grey Cells. The morning sun cast a golden haze over the Nile, but aboard the Lotus, the mood was far from serene. The murders of Professor Meller and Ahmed had turned the riverboat into a floating cauldron of suspicion, with passengers eyeing one another warily. Hercule Poirot sat in the saloon, a cup of tisane cooling beside him, his notebook filled with meticulous diagrams and observations. Captain Hastings, pacing nearby, looked as though he might wear a hole in the polished floor. Poirot, Hastings said, 2 murders in as many days. This curse business is starting to feel real. How are you so calm? Poirot's eyes twinkled. Calm, mon ami? No, I am a storm within, but it is the storm of the little grey cells at work. The truth, it hides in the details, and Hercule Poirot, he will find it. He tapped his notebook, where he had listed the suspects. Sir Reginald Hartley, Lady Evelyn Warrington, Lord Warrington, Dr. Amira Khalil, and Marcus Vane. Beside each name were notes on their alibis, motives, and peculiarities. Observe, Poirot said, pointing to a sketch of the Ankh's case. The dagger that killed Ahmed bore the Ankh's symbol, yet the case remains locked. This suggests a purpose, to fuel the myth of the curse. Hastings frowned. But why? To scare off the workers, or to stop the expedition? Perhaps both, Poirot replied, or perhaps to conceal a deeper crime. Let us consider the facts. Muller dies by poison, a method subtle and planned. Ahmed by a dagger, bold and theatrical. 2 methods, yet 1 killer, I suspect. Poirot's thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Amira Khalil, who approached with a hesitant step. Monsieur Poirot, she said, I found something in my notes from the tomb's inscriptions. It may be important. She handed him a sketch of hieroglyphs, her finger tracing a line. This speaks of a guardian who protects the Ankh. It mentions a ritual, a blood offering to appease the pharaoh's wrath. Could the murders be part of this? Poirot studied the sketch, his mind racing. Most interesting, mademoiselle. But rituals, they are for the superstitious. I seek a human hand. Tell me, did you see anyone near the Ankh's case last night? Amira shook her head. No, but I heard footsteps outside my cabin after midnight. I thought it was the crew. As she left, Marcus Vane sauntered in, his grin undeterred by the grim atmosphere. Poirot, you're the talk of the boat. Got any theories for my next article? My editor's begging for a scoop. Poirot's smile was tight. Monsieur Vane, your pen is swift, but your eyes, do they see? You were on deck before Ahmed's death. Did you notice anything unusual? Vane shrugged. Just the usual. Sir Reginald barking orders, Lady Evelyn fussing over the Ankh. Oh, and Lord Warrington was lurking near the cabins, looking shifty. Poirot made a note, then dismissed Vane. He turned to Hastings. The fabric I found near Ahmed's body, it is fine linen, not the coarse cloth of a worker's garb. This points to someone of means. And the footsteps Mademoiselle Khalil heard, they suggest our killer moves freely at night. Later, Poirot inspected the Ankh's glass case, now under double guard. He noticed a faint scratch near the lock, barely visible. Curious, he murmured. This lock has been tampered with, yet the Ankh remains. Why? As the day wore on, Poirot observed the suspects at luncheon. Sir Reginald's bluster seemed forced, Lady Evelyn's composure strained. Lord Warrington barely spoke, his monocle hiding his eyes. Amira avoided Vane's probing questions, while Vane himself seemed too eager, his laughter ringing hollow. Hastings, Poirot said as they retired to the deck, the killer plays a clever game, using the curse as a mask. But the little grey cells, they see the pattern. The next move, it will come soon, and we must be ready. In the distance, the Nile's waters shimmered, but a faint ripple broke the surface, a shadow perhaps, or something more sinister gliding beneath. Poirot's gaze lingered, his mind a whirl of connections, each clue a step closer to unmasking the Pharaoh's deadly vengeance. Chapter 7. A Midnight Confession. The Lotus rocked gently on the Nile, its lanterns casting flickering shadows across the deck as midnight approached. The passengers, shaken by the murders of Professor Mueller and Ahmed, had retired early, but sleep eluded them. Hercule Poirot, ever vigilant, sat in his cabin, his notebook open, the faint glow of a lamp illuminating his meticulous notes. Captain Hastings sprawled in a chair, stifled a yawn. "Poirot," Hastings said, "it's been a long day. Surely the killer won't strike again tonight." The crews doubled the watch. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Mon ami, the killer does not rest when the prey is alert. No, they wait for the moment of vulnerability. And tonight, I sense, we shall learn something new." A soft knock interrupted them. Poirot opened the door to find Dr. Amira Khalil, her face pale, her eyes red-rimmed. She clutched her notebook, its pages crumpled as if gripped too tightly. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, "I must speak with you. Alone." Hastings rose, but Poirot gestured for him to stay. "Mademoiselle, you are distressed. Speak freely. Captain Hastings is my trusted confidant." Amira hesitated, then sank into a chair, her voice trembling. "I've been lying, Monsieur Poirot. Not about everything, but about the Ankh. I know more than I've said." Poirot leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "Continue, mademoiselle. What is this secret you carry?" She drew a shaky breath. "Before Mueller died, He showed me a hidden inscription on the ankh, one not recorded in the official logs. It spoke of a second artifact, a seal, buried deeper in the tomb. He believed it was the true source of the curse, a key to immense power. He wanted to find it, to protect it from falling into the wrong hands. Hastings gasped. A second artifact? Good Lord, Amira, why didn't you tell us sooner? I was afraid. Artifact. Good Lord, Amira, why didn't you tell us sooner? I was afraid, she said, tears welling. Muller said someone on the expedition was after it, not for science, but for profit. He suspected Sir Reginald, or perhaps Lady Evelyn. I thought if I stayed silent, I could find it myself, return it to Egypt. But now, with Ahmed dead, I fear I'm next. Poirot's fingers steepled. Mademoiselle, this is most illuminating. Did you tell anyone else of this seal? She shook her head. Only Muller knew. But I saw Marcus Vane near the Unks case last night, after Ahmed's death. He was sketching it, muttering about a big story. I don't trust him. Poirot made a note, his mind racing. And this seal, did Muller describe it? A small disc, Amira said, inlaid with lapis lazuli, marked with the eye of Horus. He said it was hidden in a chamber beneath the tomb's sanctum. As Amira left, her footsteps echoing down the corridor, Poirot turned to Hastings. This confession, it changes much. A second artifact explains the killer's boldness. But why kill Ahmed? Was he too close to the truth? Hastings rubbed his chin. Perhaps he saw something, someone tampering with the case, like Vane said. Oui, but the fabric I found, the scratch on the lock, these point to a plan, not a moment of panic. Poirot's eyes narrowed. We must watch Monsieur Van closely, and Sir Reginald and Lady Evelyn. Their motives, they grow clearer. A sudden thud from the deck above startled them. Poirot and Hastings rushed out, finding a coil of rope fallen from its hook, but no one in sight. Poirot knelt, examining the deck, and found a single drop of wax, still warm, as if from a candle. Curious, he murmured. Someone moves in the shadows, Hastings, and they are careless. As they returned to the cabin, the Nile's waters seemed to hum with secrets. The golden ankh's glow, a beacon in the darkness. Poirot's little grey cells were alight, weaving Amira's confession into the tapestry of clues. But the killer's next move loomed ever closer. Chapter 8. The Temple's Secret. The Lotus had anchored near a crumbling temple at the Nile's edge, its ancient stones bathed in the soft glow of dawn. Hercule Poirot, accompanied by Captain Hastings, disembarked with a small group to explore the site, prompted by Dr. Amira Khalil's revelation about a hidden seal. The air was thick with the scent of dust and time, and the temple's weathered columns loomed like silent sentinels over the expedition. Poirot, Hastings said, swatting at a fly, this place gives me the shivers. All this talk of seals and curses, do you really think there's something hidden here? Mon ami, Poirot replied, his eyes scanning the hieroglyph-covered walls. The past speaks to those who listen. Mademoiselle Khalil's confession points to a truth buried in these stones, and Hercule Poirot, he will uncover it. The group included Sir Reginald Hartley, whose bluster had faded into nervous glances, and Dr. Amira Khalil, her notebook clutched tightly as she translated inscriptions. Lady Evelyn Warrington, elegant in a linen dress, surveyed the temple with a calculating eye, while Lord Warrington lagged behind, muttering about the heat. Marcus Vane, ever the opportunist, snapped photographs, his camera clicking like a metronome. Amira led them to a shadowed alcove, where a faint seam in the stone suggested a hidden door. This matches Muller's notes, she said, tracing the carvings. The inscription speaks of a chamber of the guardian, where the seal of Nebkare lies. It warns that only the pure of heart may touch it. Sir Reginald scoffed. More superstitious drivel. If there's a seal, it's ours to claim. Open it, Amira. Poirot raised a hand. Un moment, Sir Reginald. Haste is the enemy of truth. Mademoiselle, what does the inscription say of those who are not pure? Amira's voice was low. They shall face the Pharaoh's wrath, a vengeance swift and unseen. As Amira pressed a carved ankh, the stone shifted, revealing a narrow passage. Poirot insisted on entering first, his torch casting eerie shadows. The chamber was small, its walls etched with vivid reliefs, depicting a pharaoh wielding an ankh and a disc-like seal, surrounded by figures writhing in agony. At the center stood a pedestal, empty save for a faint outline in the dust, as if something had been recently removed. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured. The seal, it is gone, but observe, Hastings, the dust is disturbed. Someone has been here, perhaps within days. Hastings peered over his shoulder. Good Lord, Poirot, do you think the killer took it? Could that be why Mullah and Ahmed were murdered? Perhaps, Poirot said, examining the pedestal. He noticed a tiny fragment of lapis lazuli, matching Amira's description of the seal. This fragment, it confirms Mademoiselle Khalil's story. But why remove the seal and leave the ankh, unless the ankh is a decoy? Lady Evelyn, lingering at the entrance, called out, Monsieur Poirot, have you found something? This delay is intolerable. Poirot emerged, his expression unreadable. Madam, I have found a clue, but also a question. Who among you visited this temple before today? The group exchanged uneasy glances. Marcus Vane grinned. Not me, Poirot, but I bet my camera someone's been sneaking around. Maybe Ahmed found out and paid the price. Lord Warrington adjusted his monocle. This is absurd. If there was a seal, it's long gone, looted centuries ago. You're chasing ghosts, Poirot. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. Ghosts, monsieur? No, I chase the living, and they leave footprints. Tell me, who among you was absent from the boat last night? Sir Reginald bristled. Are you accusing us? I was in my cabin, as was Evelyn. Ask the crew. Amira hesitated. I couldn't sleep. I walked the deck, but saw no one leave. As the group returned to the Lotus, Poirot lingered, his eyes on the temple's entrance. He bent down, retrieving a cigarette stub half buried in the sand, its brand foreign to the local workers. Hastings, he said softly, the temple has spoken, and its secret points to betrayal. The seal is the key, and someone aboard this boat holds it. The Nile's current seemed to murmur in agreement, but as Poirot boarded the riverboat, a distant rustle in the reeds suggested they were not alone. The Pharaoh's vengeance, it seemed, was watching closely. Chapter 9. Betrayal on Board. The Lotus steamed northward along the Nile, its polished decks gleaming under the midday sun, but an air of dread clung to the riverboat like damp mist. The discovery of the empty chamber in the temple had rattled the passengers, and the murders of Professor Meller and Ahmed cast long shadows over their every glance. Hercule Poirot, seated in the saloon with a cup of untouched tisane, observed the group with his piercing gaze, his notebook filled with intricate diagrams of crews and motifs. Poirot, Captain Hastings whispered, leaning close. This business is getting worse. The crew's muttering about jumping ship, and I don't blame them. 3 days, 2 murders. What's next? Patience, mon ami, Poirot replied, his moustache twitching. The killer. They grow bold, but also careless. Each act reveals more of their design. The seal, the ankh, These are pieces of a puzzle, and Hercule Poirot, he will assemble it." The saloon was tense, with Sir Reginald Hartley pacing, his face flushed with frustration. Lady Evelyn Warrington sat poised, her emerald earrings catching the light, though her fingers toyed nervously with a silk scarf. Lord Warrington, as usual, seemed detached, polishing his monocle with exaggerated care. Dr. Amira Khalil, her notebook open, scribbled translations, her eyes darting to the Ankh's glass case. Marcus Vane, undeterred by the grim mood, hovered near the bar, quizzing the steward about the crew's movements. As luncheon was served, a sudden crash echoed from below deck, followed by a shout. The passengers froze, then rushed toward the sound, Poirot leading the way with surprising agility. In the storage hold, they found a crate shattered, its contents, archaeological tools and fragments, scattered across the floor. Amid the debris lay the steward, Mr. Farouk, clutching his arm, a deep gash bleeding profusely. A heavy bronze statue, etched with hieroglyphs, lay beside him, its base stained red. "Good heavens!" Hastings exclaimed. "Another attack! Is he alive?" Poirot said, kneeling beside Farouk. "Monsieur, what happened here?" Farouk, wincing, gasped. "I was checking the crates. Someone pushed the statue. It fell. I saw a shadow, then nothing." Poirot's eyes scanned the hold, noting a faint footprint in the dust, too small for a man's shoe. "This was no accident," he murmured. "The statue, it was placed to fall. But why Farouk? What did he see?" Sir Reginald, breathless, demanded, "Poirot, this is sabotage." "First Mellor, then Ahmed, now this. Someone wants to ruin me." Lady Evelyn's voice was sharp. "Or protect the expedition. Farouk was careless. Perhaps he disturbed something he shouldn't have." Poirot turned to her. "Madame, you speak of carelessness, yet this act is deliberate. Tell me, where were you when the crash occurred?" Lady Evelyn stiffened. "In the saloon, with everyone else. You saw me, did I?" Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "The saloon is large and eyes wander. Monsieur Vane, you were near the stairs. Did you see anyone leave?" Vane grinned, his notebook ready. "Not a soul, Poirot. But I heard Farouk arguing with Lord Warrington this morning. Something about locking the hold. Sounded heated." Lord Warrington scowled. "Nonsense. I told him to secure the crates properly. This is his own fault." Amira, pale, stepped forward. "Monsieur Poirot, Farouk told me yesterday he saw someone near the Ankh's case at night. He didn't say who, but he was frightened." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "Most interesting, mademoiselle. And this shadow Farouk saw, did he describe it?" "Only that it moved quickly," Amira said. "He thought it was one of us." As Farouk was carried to the infirmary, Poirot examined the hold. He found a silk thread caught on a splintered crate, matching the color of Lady Evelyn's scarf. "Curious," he murmured, pocketing it. "The web of deceit tightens, Hastings. Farouk was a witness, and someone wished to silence him." Back on deck, the passengers whispered of the curse, their fear palpable. Poirot stood by the railing, the Nile's waters reflecting the sun's glare. "The Ankh, the seal, the attacks, they are connected by betrayal," he said to Hastings. "Someone aboard this boat weaves a dangerous game, and we must unravel it before they strike again." A faint creak from the hole's entrance caught Poirot's ear, and his eyes narrowed. The Nile whispered on, but its secrets were growing louder, and the Pharaoh's vengeance was far from sated. Chapter 10. The Pharaoh's Riddle. The Lotus glided through the Nile's twilight, its lanterns casting a golden shimmer on the water. But the atmosphere aboard was heavy with dread. The attack on Farouk, following the murders of Professor Mellor and Ahmed, had left the passengers on edge, their whispers of the curse growing louder. Hercule Poirot, seated in the saloon, pored over Dr. Amira Khalil's sketches of the temple inscriptions, his eyes alight with the spark of discovery. Captain Hastings, hovering nearby, clutched a glass of brandy, his nerves frayed. "Poirot," Hastings said, "this is getting out of hand. 3 incidents, and now Farouk's lucky to be alive. Are you any closer to catching this fiend?" "Patience, mon ami," Poirot replied, his finger tracing a hieroglyph. "The little grey cells, they are at work. This inscription from the temple, it is not merely a warning, it is a riddle, and Hercule Poirot, he will solve it." The sketch provided by Amira depicted a sequence of symbols: an ankh, an eye of Horus, a reed, and a coiled serpent. Below them, a line of text warned of the guardian's price. Poirot had spent hours cross-referencing Amira's notes with Muller's, piecing together their meaning. Now he leaned back, his moustache twitching with satisfaction. "The riddle," he said, "it speaks of balance. The ankh, it represents life. The eye, vigilance. The reed, growth. The serpent, death. Together they suggest a cycle, a transaction. The seal, I believe, is not merely an artifact, but a key to a ritual, one that someone seeks to complete." Hastings frowned. "A ritual? You mean the blood offering Amira mentioned? Good Lord, Poirot, you don't think someone's actually trying to appease this pharaoh?" "No," Poirot said, "but they wish us to believe so. The murders, the attack on Farouk, they are staged to mimic the curse, to distract from a simpler motive, greed, perhaps, or revenge." As Poirot spoke, Dr. Amira Khalil entered, her face pale but resolute. "Monsieur Poirot, have you made progress?" "I've been studying the ankh's inscriptions again. There's a reference to a false guardian, someone who betrays the pharaoh's trust." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Most illuminating, mademoiselle. This false guardian, it aligns with the riddle. Tell me, did Muller ever mention who he suspected of seeking the seal?" Amira hesitated. "He was vague, but he distrusted Lady Evelyn. He thought her funding came with strings, private collectors perhaps, who wanted the seal for themselves." Before Poirot could respond, Marcus Vane burst in, his camera slung over his Gaillot's shoulder. "Poirot, you're missing the action. Sir Reginald's throwing a fit on deck. Says someone tried to break into the ankh's case again." Poirot and Hastings hurried to the deck, where Sir Reginald stood by the glass case, his face crimson. "Look at this," he roared, pointing to fresh scratches around the lock. "Someone's after the ankh, and I'll have their head for it." Lady Evelyn, nearby, clutched her scarf, her voice icy. "This is absurd, Reginald. The case is secure. You're jumping at shadows." Poirot examined the scratches, noting their similarity to those he'd seen before. "Madame," he said, "these marks are deliberate, yet the ankh remains. Why tamper with the lock and take nothing? Unless the goal is to draw our attention." Lord Warrington, polishing his monocle, snorted. "Or it's another of your wild theories, Poirot. The crew's careless. Probably bumped the case moving surprise." Poirot's smile was thin. "Monsieur, carelessness does not leave such precise marks. No, this is a performance, and the stage is set for another act." Later in his cabin, Poirot compared the silk thread from the hold to Lady Evelyn's scarf, confirming a match. He also studied the cigarette stub from the temple, its brand rare and European. "The riddle points to a traitor," he told Hastings, "and the clues point to someone close. The seal is the prize, but the ankh is the bait." As the Lotus sailed on, a faint clatter echoed from the engine room. unnoticed by the passengers but not by Poirot. His eyes narrowed, sensing the killer's next move was imminent. The Nile's whisper grew louder, and the Pharaoh's riddle was one step closer to being solved. Chapter 11. The Gathering Storm. The Lotus cut through the Nile's dark waters, the sky above bruised with clouds that mirrored the unease aboard. The murders of Professor Meller and Ahmed, coupled with the attack on Farouk, had frayed the nerves of the passengers, who now moved with the wariness of prey. Hercule Poirot stood in the saloon, his eyes like twin beacons, scanning the faces of the suspects. Sir Reginald Hartley, Lady Evelyn Warrington, Lord Warrington, Dr. Amira Khalil, and Marcus Vane. Captain Hastings at his side clutched a crumpled newspaper, his face taut. "Poirot," Hastings whispered, "the crew's on the verge of mutiny, and the passengers aren't far behind. If you don't unmask this killer soon, we'll have a riot on our hands." "Calm yourself, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice steady. "The storm gathers, yes, but it is in chaos that the truth reveals itself. The little grey cells, they are close to victory." The day had been fraught with incidents. At breakfast, Sir Reginald had accused Marcus Vane of stirring panic with his endless questions, nearly coming to blows before Lady Evelyn intervened. Amira, pale and withdrawn, had spent hours poring over her notes, muttering about the false guardian. Lord Warrington, unusually animated, had demanded the boat turn back to Cairo, only to be overruled by Sir Reginald's insistence on continuing the expedition. Now, as evening fell, Poirot gathered the group in the saloon, the golden ankh gleaming in its glass case at the room's centre. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his tone commanding, "the murders of Meller and Ahmed and the attack on Farouk are not the work of a curse, but of a human hand. I have uncovered clues, a silk thread, a cigarette stub, a scratched lock, that point to a traitor among us." Lady Evelyn's eyes narrowed, her scarf clutched tightly. "Monsieur Poirot, this is preposterous. You're suggesting one of us is a murderer." "Précisément, madame," Poirot said, "and I am close to naming them. But first, I must ask, who among you has visited the ankh's case alone?" Sir Reginald blustered. "I check it daily. It's my responsibility. But I've never tampered with it." Marcus Vane grinned. "Don't look at me, Poirot. I'm just here for the story. Though I did see Lord Warrington near the hold last night, looking mighty suspicious." Lord Warrington's monocle dropped, his face reddening. "Lies! I was in my cabin. Vane, you're a troublemaker." Amira's voice cut through the din. "Monsieur Poirot, I found another inscription in Muller's notes. It mentions a shadow that moves with the light. I think it refers to someone trusted, someone close to the expedition." Poirot nodded, his mind racing. The silk thread matched Lady Evelyn's scarf. The cigarette stub was a brand favoured by Lord Warrington, and Vane's constant presence near the case was suspicious. Yet Amira's secrecy about the seal raised questions, and Sir Reginald's desperation to protect the expedition hinted at hidden motives. As the group dispersed, Poirot lingered by the ankh's case, noticing a faint smudge on the glass. A fingerprint, perhaps, left in haste. He turned to Hastings. "The killer grows reckless, mon ami. They sense my pursuit. But this fingerprint, it may be the key." Suddenly, a sharp creak echoed from the deck above, followed by a muffled cry. Poirot and Hastings rushed up, finding a chair overturned and a single shoe lying near the railing. The crew reported no one missing, but Poirot's eyes narrowed as he spotted a faint trail of sand leading to the cabins. "Hastings," he said softly, "the storm is upon us." The killer strikes to silence another, but they have left a trail. We are close, but danger is closer. As the clouds thickened overhead, the Nile's waters churned, and Poirot felt the weight of unseen eyes watching from the shadows. The Pharaoh's vengeance was poised for its next move, and Poirot knew time was running out. Chapter 12. The Final Confrontation. The saloon of the Lotus was a stage set for judgment, its lanterns casting a sombre glow over the gathered passengers. The golden ankh, locked in its glass case, seemed to pulse with an eerie light, as if aware of the drama unfolding. Hercule Poirot stood at the room's centre, his posture impeccable, his eyes like twin flames piercing the tension. Captain Hastings, seated near the door, gripped his chair, sensing the weight of the moment. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice resonant, "we have journeyed through a storm of murder and deceit. Professor Muller, Ahmed, the attack on Farouk, these acts were not the work of a pharaoh's curse, but of a human heart, driven by greed and betrayal. Tonight, Hercule Poirot will name the killer." The suspect sat in a semicircle. Sir Reginald Hartley, his face flushed with anxiety; Lady Evelyn Warrington, her composure fraying; Lord Warrington, his monocle glinting with unease; Dr. Amira Khalil, clutching her notebook; and Marcus Vane, his pen poised, a nervous grin on his face. Poirot paced slowly. "Let us begin with the facts. Muller was poisoned, Ahmed stabbed, Farouk attacked, all linked to the golden ankh and the missing seal of Nebkare. The inscriptions warned of a false Nebkare. The inscriptions warned of a false guardian, a traitor, but who?" He turned to Sir Reginald. "You, monsieur, were desperate to protect the expedition, your reputation staked on the ankh. Yet you argued with Muller, who wanted to halt the dig. Did you silence him to save your fame?" Sir Reginald sputtered, "Absurd! I'm no murderer." Poirot's gaze shifted to Lady Evelyn. "Madame, your scarf's thread was found in the hold, near Farouk's attack. You funded the expedition, but for profit, no? The seal, a priceless artifact, would fetch a fortune from private collectors." Lady Evelyn's eyes flashed. "I've done nothing but support this venture. You have no proof." "Perhaps," Poirot said, then turned to Lord Warrington. "Monsieur, your cigarette stub was found at the temple, where the seal was taken. You claimed to be in your cabin, yet witnesses saw you near the hold. Were you seeking the seal for yourself?" Lord Warrington's monocle dropped. "Preposterous! I'm no thief." Poirot faced Amira. "Mademoiselle Khalil, you knew of the seal and kept it secret, fearing its theft. Your passion for Egypt's heritage is admirable, but did it drive you to kill to protect it?" Amira's voice trembled. "I would never harm anyone. I only wanted to save our history." Finally, Poirot turned to Marcus Vane. "Monsieur Vane, your pursuit of a story placed you everywhere, near the ankh, the hold, the temple. Your camera, it captures more than photographs, no? Perhaps secrets to sell?" Vane's grin faltered. "I'm just a journalist, Poirot. You're barking up the wrong tree." Poirot smiled. "No, I am not. The killer is cunning, using the curse as a mask. The poison, the dagger, the statue, these were theatrical, meant to terrify. But the clues, the silk thread, the cigarette stub, the scratched lock, the fingerprint point to one truth." He paused, then pointed. "Monsieur Marcus Vane, you are the false guardian." Gasps filled the room. Vane laughed nervously. "Me? You're mad, Poirot." Poirot's voice was steel. "You were seen near the ankh's case, sketching it, but not for your story, for a buyer. The cigarette stub, a rare American brand, matches those in your cabin. The fingerprint on the case is yours. You stole the seal from the temple, intending to sell it, but Muller suspected you. You poisoned him. Ahmed saw you tampering with the case, so you stabbed him with a dagger to fuel the curse myth. Farouk overheard your plans, so you staged the statue's fall. Vane's face paled. You can't prove any of this. Poirot produced the silk thread. This, I confess, was a misdirection. I planted it to test reactions. Yours, Monsieur Van, was panic, and the seal— He gestured to a steward, who brought forth a small bundle. Inside was the lapis lazuli disc, retrieved from Vane's camera bag. You hid it well, but not from Hercule Poirot. Vane lunged for the door, but Hastings and the crew seized him. It was just business, Vane shouted. The seal's worth millions. Merlin was going to ruin everything. As Vane was restrained, Poirot addressed the group. The curse was a lie, but greed was real. The Ankh and seal are safe, and justice will be served. The passengers exhaled, the tension breaking like a wave. The Nile flowed on, its whispers now silent, as Poirot's little grey cells triumphed over the Pharaoh's deadly vengeance. Chapter 13. The Resolution. The Lotus steamed toward Cairo, under a sky ablaze with stars. The Nile's waters now calm, as if relieved of their secrets. The saloon, once a cauldron of fear, was quiet. The passengers gathered in subdued reflection. Hercule Poirot stood by the Ankh's glass case. Its golden glow softened in the lamplight. The lapis lazuli seal now secured beside it. Captain Hastings at his side sipped a brandy, his relief palpable. "Poirot," Hastings said, "you've done it again." Unmasked Vane saved the artifacts and put that cursed nonsense to rest. I dare say you've earned a holiday. Poirot's moustache twitched with a faint smile. Mon ami, for Hercule Poirot, the holiday is in the pursuit of truth. But this case, it leaves a taste most bitter. The human heart, it is capable of such greed, such betrayal. The aftermath of Marcus Vane's arrest had been swift. Bound and guarded, he awaited transfer to Cairo's authorities, his bravado replaced by sullen silence. The seal, recovered from his camera bag, had been authenticated by Dr. Amira Khalil, who confirmed its significance as a ritual counterpart to the Ankh. Sir Reginald Hartley, shaken but relieved, vowed to continue the expedition with greater care, promising to return the seal to Egypt's archives. Lady Evelyn Warrington, her ambitions chastened, agreed to fund its preservation, while Lord Warrington muttered about returning to London's comforts. Amira approached Poirot, her eyes bright with gratitude. "Monsieur Poirot, you've saved more than lives. The seal, the Ankh, they belong to my people. I feared they'd be lost to greed." Poirot bowed slightly. "Mademoiselle, your passion for your heritage, it is a light in the darkness. Guard it well." Sir Reginald, mopping his brow, joined them. "Poirot, I owe you an apology. I thought your suspicions were hogwash, but you've saved my expedition. Name your price." Poirot waved a hand. "The price, Sir Reginald, is order restored. But perhaps a case of your finest brandy for my friend Hastings, no?" Hastings chuckled, but his expression sobered as he glanced at the Ankh. "What about the curse, Poirot? Was it all just Vane's trickery?" "Oui, Hastings," Poirot said. "Vane used the legend to mask his crimes. Poison for Mella, a dagger for Ahmed, a staged attack on Farouk. The scratches on the case, the Ankh-shaped blade, these were theatrics to fuel fear. But the true curse is the greed that drove him to betray his companions." Lady Evelyn, lingering nearby, spoke softly. "I misjudged you, Monsieur Poirot. I thought the Ankh was my legacy, but I see now it belongs to history." Poirot nodded. "Madame, wisdom comes when ambition bends to truth. You will do well to remember it." As the passengers dispersed, Poirot stood alone by the railing, the Nile's gentle ripples reflecting the stars. He thought of the riddle, the ankh, the eye, the reed, the serpent, and its warning of a false guardian. Vain had played that role, but Poirot knew the human heart held many such shadows waiting to emerge. "Hastings," he said, as his friend joined him, "the Pharaoh's vengeance was no curse, but a mirror. It shows us what we become when we chase what is not ours. Let us leave this river with that lesson." The Lotus sailed on, Cairo's lights faint on the horizon. The ankh and seal, now safe, would return to their rightful place, and Poirot, with his little grey cells at rest, turned his gaze to the stars, ready for the next puzzle the world would offer.